I want you to think back to your wedding day. And I want you to think back to one particular part of your wedding, which is the wedding vows. Now, most of us have, different types of wedding vows that we use, but there's a traditional setting of wedding vows that a lot of people use. And then in those vows, we include these two words: to love and to cherish. To love and to cherish. Now, most of us get the love part throughout our marriage, but then we start to kind of forget about the cherish part. I want you to think about it. When you first started dating your spouse, you would cherish them like no other. Guys, you were like, here's a dozen roses, baby, every single Friday night when you were going out. Girls, you were cherishing your man by sending him love letters, by sending him cute little texts, by wearing that little thing that he loved to see you in. You were cherishing him. You were also in love, but you also were cherishing your spouse. And that's one of the reasons why you ended up getting married in the first place. But then you get married and you're like, I still love my spouse, but do I really cherish my spouse? And that's what we're going to be talking about over the next 4 weeks here at Home Builders, is this word cherish. And so let's dig into that and see what that word really means. To cherish one another means to protect it. To cherish something means to protect it. I want to ask you a question. When is the last time that you were truly protecting your spouse? You know what I'm saying? Like when that person comes in and they start talking about your spouse in a way that you're like, I don't really know if I really like this, but you know what? I'm going to just kind of go on with it anyways because, Joe, he really is kind of like this. And so I'm just going to join in on the gossip about Joe anyways. Are you really protecting him then? When you join in on that gossip about your husband or your wife? To cherish something means to respect it. Men want to be respected. Women want to be respected. How are you respecting your spouse? A lot of you lose respect for your spouse because of decisions that were made. Well, he's bought 15 cars in the last 10 years since I've known him. Or, well, she's just made terrible decision after terrible decision after terrible decision, and you are no longer respecting one another because of the past and because of these decisions that you are continuously making. But to cherish something is to respect it. To cherish something is to notice it. I want you to remember when you were dating and your wife came down the stairs for a date and you're like, dang girl, I know they say milk does a body good, but how much have you been drinking? Right? It's like you were so in love with that person. You were like, I notice you. I want to, just like Dan and Shay, the great theologian, said, baby, I just want to show you off, right? Like you were singing that song going on a date. But when's the last time you've really noticed your spouse? When's the last time, wives, you've noticed your husband doing something for your family and then said something to him and said, babe, hey man, I noticed that. Oh, look at you. You look good today. Look at that shirt. Okay, yeah, I love that. You looking good, right? When do you notice your spouse? And then when are you grateful? Because to cherish something means to be grateful for it, to show gratitude for it. When is the last time you've went up to your spouse and simply said, thank you? I noticed it. I noticed what you did. I'm grateful for it. Or, hey, I'm just grateful for you. Wake up in the morning and just turn to your spouse and say, I am grateful for you today, baby. And then slap a big one on them. Seriously, and see what happens. To cherish something, we're going to put energy into showcasing it and protecting it. We're going to protect and we're going to showcase. We're going to go, hey guys, have you seen my wife? How awesome she is? Hey, ladies, hey, all the single ladies out there, listen, look at my husband. Look at my man. I want you to see my man. I want you to see, because I cherish him and he cherishes me, the amazing things that have happened in our marriage. You're going to protect your spouse. I want you to ask yourself this question: how can we get our highest pleasure from seeing others honor and appreciate and admire our spouse? One of the things that I love to do for my wife, Ashley, is tell everybody on the planet about how awesome my wife's business is. And so if anybody comes to me and they're talking about what my wife does professionally, I'm always like, hey, you have got to get my wife, Ashley Hawk, to do that for you because she will do an amazing job. And you know what I love? I love when they call me and they go, oh my gosh, man, you are right. Ashley did an amazing job on that. And that is part of me cherishing my spouse, showing her off to the world. Listen, cherished spouses thrive, not survive. Here's what you need to know. Let me say that again. When you cherish your spouse will begin to thrive instead of survive. Some of your marriages in here tonight are only surviving. And the reason why is because you have loved your spouse, but you have forgotten to cherish your spouse. When someone is cherished in the workplace, they feel awesome, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of showing up to work and somebody going like, hey, everybody around here is replaceable, all right? No. There's only one of me. Just like I said, there's only one of your spouse. Well, there's only one of you that God has ever made. Now, that does not mean that I am like irreplaceable in the sense of nobody can do my job, but nobody can do my job like me. And I love it when my boss sees that. When my boss is like, you are amazing at that. We cherish you in this company, right? And you know what that makes me want to do? Makes me want to show up to work. Makes me want to be like, yep, let's go. Today is an awesome day. Well, what if you were to put that same principle into your marriage where you started cherishing your spouse and you started going, there's only one of you in this house and I am going to cherish you. But instead, what leads us to just surviving in marriages is we don't cherish and we don't respect and we don't honor and we don't show gratitude and we don't show all of these things that cherishing does. And then we end up in anxiety loops and we end up in depression and we end up committing adultery and we end up doing all of these other things because instead of cherishing, we are going into a survival mode. And in survival mode, that is when you don't thrive. You can't be surviving and thriving at the same time. So if you want to see your marriage turn and flip from surviving to thriving, then over the next 4 weeks, as we learn what it looks like to cherish your spouse, then you will see your marriage flip from surviving to thriving. Husbands, wives want to be more than just loved. Wives, husbands want to be more than just loved. It's great that you love them, but how do you cherish them? You see, at Home Builders, we don't want just marriages where we're just toughing through it, we're gritting our teeth, we're just like, well, the Bible says we can't get divorced, so we're just going to, stuff it. No, that's not what we want. We want you to be thriving in your marriage, and cherishing your spouse is such a part of it. To cherish is to know someone, to really know someone, to know their little ticks, to know what to get them, to know how to come alongside of them and talk to them, to really know your spouse. It's to know your spouse intimately. How do you begin to know your spouse even sexually as well? How do you cherish them sexually? It's preferring someone. It's saying there is no other person on the face of the planet that I would rather spend time with than you. Does your spouse know that? That you prefer them over everyone else? There was a time when they knew that, and that's one of the reasons why you got married, but now they don't know that. How can you begin to put that back in your marriage? It's choosing someone above all others. In the Bible, in the first chapter of the Song of Songs, we see a great example of how these two cherished one another, King Solomon and his wife. It starts out in verse 2, chapter 1, verse 2. She says, "Let him smother me with kisses, because his spirit kiss is divine. So kind are your caresses. I drink them in like the sweetest wine. Your presence releases a fragrance that is so pleasing, over and over poured out on me. Listen to that. She's like, listen, smother me with your kisses. When's the last time, wives, you went up to your husband and said that? Instead, some of you are like, no, you need to go brush your teeth. Come on. So kind are your caresses. Your presence releases a fragrance that's so pleasing. It's meaning like when he shows up on the scene, she cherishes that so much that she is just like, I want you around because you release a sweet presence in my life. Husbands, do you do that for your wife? What presence are you releasing? The presence of negativity or the presence of a spirit-filled man that loves God and loves his wife? Listen to what he says about her. You are so lovely. You are like the fine linen tapestry hanging in the holy place. I love that. You are so lovely. You're like fine linen hanging in a holy place, meaning I'm going to protect you, okay? There is nobody that's going to get to you because I'm going to protect you. You are like that fine linen that's hanging in the most holy of holy places. Nobody can get to it because you are so protective. You are so beautiful. You are so cherished. He goes on to say, listen, my radiant one. If you ever lose sight of me, just follow in my footsteps where I lead my lovers, meaning I will protect you if you ever get lost. Husbands, to cherish is to go and be able to seek your wife, even in those moments where she is all stressed out. That's one of the things that over the weekend I had to do in my own house. My wife was stressed out about all of these things, and instead, I did not want to cherish her in this moment, but instead, here's what I did. I looked at her and I said, hey, no, it's not been the greatest day today, but how can I help you? How can you know that I am protecting you in this moment? And if you need my help, then what can I do? And sometimes that in itself, just asking, noticing that your spouse is having a hard day, and even when your spouse hasn't been the most friendly to you, you protecting your relationship and cherishing her or him in a way where you still say, hey, I'm noticing this is going on. How can I help? How can I protect you? He goes on to say, look at you, my dearest darling. You are so lovely. You are beauty itself to me. Your passionate eyes are like gentle doves. Absolutely amazing, the banter that they have, that they go back and forth about how they cherish one another. And I want to encourage you this week to read through the first chapter of Song of Songs and see how those two and what God teaches us about cherishing and how we speak to our spouse in an amazing way. And over these next 4 weeks, as we begin to learn how to cherish, I guarantee your marriage will move from surviving to thriving.